Welcome to a new session on warehouse and inventory management. We stick with the unit load warehouse, that is a warehouse that only deals with pallet loads for the receiving and the shipping end, so there's no repackaging of the pallets inside the warehouse. And for such a unit load warehouse, we now want to have a closer look at which operations affect the labor cost of such a warehouse. The learning goals are: you will be able to judge if a storage location is convenient or not. You will have an idea on how to minimize the labor costs by assigning SKUs to convenient storage location. For this, you will learn an algorithm that you can apply to do this task. You will be able to discuss the effects of different receiving and shipping locations, and you will be able to propose different aisle configurations for different types of warehouses. Let's have a look at how to reduce labor by careful product placement inside the warehouse. To discuss the product placement inside the warehouse, you also need to know a little bit about what's going on outside the warehouse. And in this big warehouse, you see the area outside the warehouse where the trucks are arriving, and they either deliver goods that should be stored inside the warehouse, or they pick goods from the warehouse. And these individual slots where the trucks are parking, these are the doors to the warehouse. And many warehouses have doors on both sides, though this is what you can see here for this warehouse, and we cannot see it, but maybe the warehouse also has doors on the top side. Typically you do not only have one door, but a high number of doors. Though, and this knowledge is, you need to know this to understand the following drawing. This is a bird's eye view of a warehouse. We have here the racks where the pallets are stored, and the white spaces between the racks are the aisles where we can drive with our forklift. Now in the bottom of this drawing of this warehouse, we have the receiving doors, so the doors where the trucks park and bring our goods that should be stored inside the warehouse. And on the top side, we have the doors for the trucks that ship goods from the warehouse. Though the goods are coming into the warehouse, are flowing into the warehouse from the bottom, and they leave the warehouse from the top. Now we do not look at all the different doors that might there be. We only look at the centering door. Why do we do this? First, this helps us to simplify our analysis, and as long as the doors are evenly spread on the bottom side and on the top side as well, like it was the case on this picture, we can just focus on the average location on the center of gravity and focus on one door only. And this is a door right in the center because it is the center of gravity. Now let's look at the blue location where we store a pallet. How much labor costs do arise when we store a pallet in this location? Well, the labor is mainly concerned with transporting the pallet through the warehouse. So once it arrives in the receiving door, we follow the blue line to put away the pallet into the rack, and then the pallet is stored. Storing does not incur any labor costs for us, but a couple of days or months or weeks later, we have to pick this pallet and bring it to the shipping door. So we follow the rest of the blue line. The same applies for the red storage position. Now, which of the positions is more convenient? Which is the more efficient to store in terms of labor costs, if we only focus on labor costs? You see the blue line is clearly shorter than the red line. That means the travel cost for the blue storage location is much lower than for the red storage location. And of course, if we now assume we move this blue storage position further to the right, further outwards to the right side, then the more we move this position outside, the less convenient the storage position gets. On the other hand, if we move the red storage position more to the center, more to this middle aisle, the more convenient it gets. And the most convenient storage location would be on the right side of this rack in the center aisle. This is the most convenient storage location because it has the smallest amount of travel associated with it. Now, when we want to measure the labor workload inside a warehouse, and we assume the labor workload is mostly related to traveling. So we look at each location. A location is indexed with I, and for each location we have an associated labor cost. That's one of these lines. We can have this for each location. And this is one factor, and the other factor, the more often we use such a location, the higher the labor cost of this location. Well, the labor costs are proportional to the travel distance required for this location I. That is indirectly given from the receiving doors to the storage to the shipping doors. And it is also affected by the number of times we use this location. And the number of times we use this location depends on how popular the products are that are stored there. How high is the turnover rate of these products? And if a location I is visited Ni times during a year, the annual labor cost of the whole warehouse are proportional to this term. We sum up over all storage locations I, and we sum up the travel distance associated with this storage location times the number of visits in 1 year to this storage location. Now, what can we do to minimize the labor costs? The labor cost expressed in this term. With respect to the travel distance, we can hardly change this as long as our warehouse is already operational. Maybe we can take into account how to change the travel distance once before we build the warehouse, but after the warehouse is operational, we can hardly change the layout of the travel distance, at least not in a day-to-day decision. On the other hand, the number of times we have to visit a location can be influenced easily. It depends on the number of customer orders that we get for a product and of our choice where to store that product. Though from this observation, it becomes immediately clear that the most frequently visited locations should be the most convenient ones. So when we identify the most convenient locations, we should store our most popular products in these locations. And the less popular products can be stored in locations that are less convenient.